Hi, folks.
Hello, Mike. This is Andreas.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Hey, everybody.
Oh.
Any topics people want to add to the agenda? All right, let's give another minute. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So the first topic we had here was the action for chairs for the PR3. I think all the chairs now have approved this pull request. So I think the next step is to just merge it in. Usama, you have the next topic? You want to go ahead and
Yeah,
introduce it?
sure.
Yep.
Sure, thanks. Okay, I'm going to share. Okay, okay, so all right. Yeah, first I want to quickly just thank the SIG for the feedback on the project, and as all the chairs have approved it as complete. So yeah, thanks a lot for all the contributions, especially Thomas Vasati, Simon Frost, and Shales Young, who were actively contributing the technical part in that, providing all the details for the formalization, which is a really important step for the formalization. So thanks a lot to all of you, and congratulations to the SIG on the first completion of the project. Hopefully we'll have others making progress as well. And this author list is not meant to be the who was contributing what exactly. So this is like the whole thing, which includes the attested TLS. So the project I'm talking about is the first one, which was the architecturally defined attestation. And the idea today I wanted to give was a quick overview of what we have done over the years in the SIG, and relating it to the objectives for this year and what comes next, in my mind, at least my vision of of the things from the formal verification perspective, and to get some feedback from the SIG, what maybe the SIG is interested in and how to proceed different items. Right. So the plan is the quick status update, roughly 10 minutes. Feel free to interrupt in between if you have questions, kind of just a recall of what we have discussed previously. Also, high-level overview, we have application, and underneath there are some transport protocols. This is not really mapping to the OSI layer, for instance. So this is just a conceptual mapping or a conceptual understanding from a formal perspective when we talk about formalization from attestation perspective, which means that there is some protocol like TLS which is going on, and then there is a debate whether it's at a transport layer or above the transport layer. So without going into that, so I just call it transport protocols. And to my belief, TLS is the only protocol which is used in all confidential computing solutions. Except somewhere SPDM is also used, but that is at a device level. So if we talk about the network connectivity, so TLS basically is the only protocol. And one layer below that, there is the systems architecture. That's where the project was lying. So the one that we just talked about, that is complete. So this was really talking about ARM CCK, Intel TTX, AMD SEV SMP. What are the primitives provided by these architectures, and how then we can combine them with the protocols was the next two projects on attested TLS. So this is really a high level or a bird's eye view of the whole thing from my understanding. And now the other two protocols will be combining basically all of the three of the things, application providing some input to the protocol layer or above the transport layer, and then using some primitives from the systems architecture to provide the attestation evidence. Okay, as I said, a quick overview of what we have done is here, basically relating it to this side. So this is going to talk about the systems architecture. Basically, we called it architecturally defined attestation, which means that the system architecture, so that's where the term is coming from. And from a formal perspective, what we have done is formalized two different settings, process-based TEs and VM-based TEs. In the process-based, we have Intel SGX and two different kinds of attestation, anonymous one, EPID, and non-anonymous one, which is the DCAP primitives. And we have formalized and published both of them in different papers. What was done within the SIG was more related to the VM-based, which is currently the most commonly used TEs. And in that, basically the attestation protocol for TTX, we published in IEEE Access. And this is the project that we talked about. So the holistic attestation, which was combining all the phases of attestation, starting from the provisioning phase, going up to the verification for two of the TEs. And then Ante Derek and Peter from University of Zagreb, basically they, in one of the meetings, also presented about AMD SEV SMP, the verification for that. So this basically completes the picture from all different TEs. So we can place either of them in one of the two buckets, and mostly the primitives remain the same. Some things change, the formats change, and so on. So we believe that others can then use these primitives, which are now online. Tutorial for ProVerif is also in the GitHub. All the artifacts are available, and then they can follow this. Okay, quickly moving on. So now, or moving a bit backward, systems architecture is what I just described in this flowchart. Then there is this transport protocols. Combining them is something, as I said, all the solutions use TLS for the network layer. And combining these two basically leads to attested TLS. This is what is described here. And what different ways I can combine them. These are the design options for attested TLS. Specifically, I can do this. So attestation, the most important step from a formal perspective is the signing of the evidence, meaning at what point in time I sign the evidence relative to the TLS handshake. If it's before, it's pre. If it's within the TLS handshake, it's intra. If it's after the handshake, it's post handshake. And with that, we have another flowchart, which is a bit clumsy, but I just wanted to give an overview of the whole thing with respect to where we stand and what we have done, what needs to be done in the future. So again, the formal specification analysis of a tested TLS, the three types that I just described. And then in the pre-handshake, which was the one in which we have signing done before the handshake, TLS handshake starts, as shown here. So the signing happens before. In that case, the signing of this can be done either by a trust anchor or a certificate authority, which is then attested CSR, certificate signing request. Then the certificate will contain the evidence itself, and the trust anchor or the certificate authority will use this evidence to verify and then issue the certificate only if it has the required measurements and whatever it wants to check. So various different solutions are actually using this, including Veracruz, Enarx, and some folks at RISC-V are also using the solution they presented at the IETF last time. And there is also one internet draft which uses this option. On the left side is the option when we have the self-signed certificate. That is, it acts as the root of trust itself. And Intel's RATLS, there is this second project of the SIG, which is focused on this. And this solution is also used in various solutions like Ramin, RATS TLS, Open Enclave Attested TLS, SCX, SDK Attested TLS, all of them with small variants, variations of the same protocol. They are using this. So instead of doing for each, what we did is we verified this whole protocol, formalized it as it was very old. Specifications were like for TLS 1.2 and so on. And then we formalized over this. Okay, moving on. Let's skip this for a moment, going to the post, because this is what we have already done. For post, we have various different solutions, options, or at least what I know currently. If I'm missing something, feel free to let me know. So what happens here is that it has TLS exporters. One option is to use the TLS exporters itself provided by the RFC 8446. And that's what SCOAN is actually using. And I presented it, I believe, last month on this about how the solution works and what the problem is. And they use EKM as a nonce, the exported key value, exported key material, I think, which is actually wrong. So there are some problems also here. And then there are two different solutions, either using over the HTTP layer, the trustee, or the KBS protocol, which is another ongoing project, which is of the SIG. Basically, we haven't done much work here. So we found that there is a very weak binding. There is no binding between the TLS still. So it's over the HTTP layer. So that's, we haven't done a lot of work here. So anyway, this is something to be done still. And then as the HTTP layer, that is extensions to the HTTP or the HTTP attestable, is also one solution here. So we have submitted this part to ICFEM conference, and coming back to the intra part, which is the internet draft describing this, which is actually then the third project of the SIG, which is describing that the signing happens within the TLS handshake to give a strong binding between each TLS session and the evidence. And in this case, we have, it says submitted, which means basically we have submitted the description of the protocol, but not yet formalized it. I will describe in the next slide. What we are currently doing in this is to, as a work in progress, the relay attacks. and contributions are very much welcome, because I've seen that there is no work which is formally talking about. There are a lot of descriptions of the informal descriptions of this attack, but no formal analysis for TEs about how it actually works. So this is what we are currently working on, and is the topmost priority to get this draft forward and to move it on. As I described in one of the meetings, that TLS working group has a requirement that it should be formally verified for adoption. Okay, and then the thing is that we have the settings in this figure are client as the verifying relying party, because the tax still applies if we have it separate or combined together. So very simplistic model. Attacker has access to this or server as the attester, and then this attacker has basically access to this key. So this key somehow has been leaked or has been compromised. So the attacker has this private key of the server. And what the draft says is that this is representing the attestation nonce. It goes to the evidence, the public part of this key goes to the evidence, and then the early exporter option, which the draft version 6 set is generated at this point in time, goes to the evidence. And what we are trying to formalize is that if this attestation nonce is forwarded to the genuine platform and an evidence is obtained back, how do we actually then reason about the relay attacks? So this is just a simplistic overview of what we have. So this is currently we are working on, and we plan to do it, plan to have some analysis until the next ITF, which is in November, I think, beginning of November. And yeah, that's kind of my summary of what we have done, what we are planning to do. And I really want to thank all of the people who have given the very useful feedback over these years of whatever we have been doing in the SIG. Nikolaus, Ante, Derek, Jeevan Yao from Intel, Jonet Arm, Hank, Giri, Yaran Thore, Karsten, Michael, Yogesh, and also ICBS reviewer, who provided us very useful feedback for this work. And yeah, that's it. Any thoughts or comments? And specifically, if someone is interested in contributing to this, even if it is informal, like as I said, Thomas, Simon, Shale, although Shale was also contributing towards the formal thing, but they were both very helpful. So don't worry if you don't have any formal experience. I think providing informal feedback or helping from the informal perspective also is very important. So if someone is interested in contributing to this, feel free to contact me or let me know right now. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Any comments?
So, is this something that if we have some extra time in this meeting or another one, you'd like to try and hash out a bit in this meeting, or does it need more sort of formal looking at it, do you think?
What exactly are you talking about? This specific
I'm
one?
kind of saying, if we had time in one of these meetings, is it something that you'd like to try and go through with one of these meetings, or do you think it needs separate looking at?
I'm sorry, I didn't follow the question yet. So if we had time, so
would you like to try to address this slide in
yeah.
one of these meetings?
Okay.
Is it
so currently
a good place to do it or not?
No, not yet. So actually, we are still kind of formalizing this. So this is just a conceptual map of what we think it could be formalized. That's why I say contributions are welcome. It's very kind of an initial idea. and we are still doing the literature review. That's
Sure.
even if we
I
had
kind of
time,
wondered,
like
I kind of whether you meant contributions kind of from this group now, but you didn't. That's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
yeah, but I'm just I just wanted to ask if someone is interested in contributing. So of course, then we can do some work and then bring it back to the SIG when we have some results or when we make some progress. So if someone is kind of interested or someone has some insights into how relay attacks work for TEEs, so feel free to let me know so that we can work together in this.
Okay, thanks.
And any other thoughts? All right, thanks.
Okay, yeah, the only other topic we had was sort of general review the issues for the SIG group. Unless there's others you want to talk about. Last week when we talked about the business models from Mike, I'm not sure if we want to talk about that today or any other topics we want to go through. We can go and look at the issues.
I can briefly talk about that, but it's I'll let you just say kind of where we are. So I was on holiday last week, and there've been a number of contributions for which thank you. I noticed one from Osama today. I need to look at those contributions and decide what to do with that document. I think it's going to be broken up into at least 2 documents and at least 2 work streams. So I'm looking to work on that this week and next. I'm not sure I'll have anything ready for next week, but that's kind of where I am with that. But thank you everyone who's had a look at that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, Mike, I had a quick look and I see some connections to one of the projects that I wanted to propose to the SIG also. That was basically going to survey the different models that exist already. So there might be some overlap.
Nice.
So that was just
sounds
a
good.
very
Yeah, I'd love to work on that with you, Sama.
Yeah.
Particularly things like the work by Ming Shen on things like zero knowledge proof and how those sorts of things fit in. So yeah, let's definitely try and catch up on that. That sounds really interesting.
All right, thanks.
Hey, Mike, could you post the link of the spec as it's of the doc as it currently stands? I was trying to find it a couple weeks ago.
No, it's a secret. Yeah, sure. I'll put it in the.
But I'm assuming you want folks to look at it, right?
I know I do. I was just pulling it like I'm putting it in the thing, and I'll also put it in the minutes.
Yeah, I think you put in the thing last time, and after the meeting ended, I couldn't get back to
well, someone's put it into the already put it into the a link into the minutes, so you'll find it there.
Right.
Is the business models link?
Sorry.
This is the business models link. That's right. Okay.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, the problem is that as I was looking at it, so many technical things occurred to me. And what's more, some of the technical things I put in made other technical things occur to other people, which meant that it kind of has stopped being the original document I wanted to be. And that still needs to happen, but we also need to chase down all of these technical issues, I think, or at least a good number of them. And so that's why I think we need to be thinking about different work streams. And some of them definitely sit within this SIG. Some of them sit in the wider TAC, and some of them sit in the wider consortium. So yeah, it's all good stuff. It's just one of those pieces of work when you start looking underneath the hood, as they say in the US, there's a whole lot more going on than you expect. In kind of a good way.
Got it. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Chris. And as I said, I've been blown away by the number of people who said they're interested, and the number of people who have actually, put information in there. So we've got 30 people or so, something like that.
Yeah, Mike, one quick comment is to first try to fix like there are some comments which are really small, like A is capital, so I would suggest.
I know. I was on holiday last week and I've just not looked at it. I agree. Getting rid of all of those is going to be easy. I think I'm just going to split and make at least 2 different documents and make all of them fix all of that sort of stuff, and then it should make it easier to address the other comments and stuff.
Right.
Yes, you're quite right. No, I 100% agree.
the reason I was saying was that it would be then easier to see others' comments once these editorial kind of comments are gone. Then it would be easier.
You're right. Yeah.
Kind of
I was
focus.
literally on holiday
Thanks.
until today, so
Sure,
I've
sure.
not looked
Yeah.
at it. So one thing when I think about actually on a different topic is who is going to be at OSS Vienna for either for the mini summit or for the OSS, because it would be nice to meet any of you who are there. It'd be really good to catch up. So I hope you can make it. Anyone going to be
I'll be there.
I will. You will be.
I'll-
Osama, good.
Yeah.
As last year, I think.
Yeah.
Where was it? Bilbao. Anyone else coming along? Thomas, you going to be there? Fritz?
Yeah, Thomas is also coming.
Stephen, are you going to be at the LSS at all? I'll be there as well, at least some of it.
No, I'm afraid not.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Okay, well, anyone who is there, let's try and catch up. That would be fantastic.
By the way, Mike, is there any update on the proposals which were submitted for the mini summit? It said that
I
notification.
believe that it should be going out today. I hope so. They were just finalising. There was one thing which needs to be finalised, which I think has now been finalised. So I'm hopeful it's going out today.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Okay, so the only other topic we have today is the SIG issues. I could share. I'm not sure what the procedure here is to advance these. Share. All right, can you see what I'm sharing?
Can't see if you're sharing. Not showing. Oh, so it's coming up now. Yep, got it.
All right, so you're seeing the issues list?
Yes, we are.
Okay. Yeah, so these have been out here for a while, and I think we put these on to the not the agenda, but typically don't get time to look at them. So see, the different owners that we have here. Is there any plan to move these forward, or any of these that we want to add to the agenda in the future? Maybe that's just
I think
an AR.
each of these kind of represents a separate history of thoughts, and I think some of these certainly were just ideas that folks floated for topics they wanted to explore deeper. So, and some had identified parties that may want to, lead, or present something to kind of take the conversation deeper, and some didn't, is my overall recollection. So, I guess what I'm saying is I don't think all of these are actionable. I went through this list like a month and a half ago, and it's not paged on top of my brain, but like some of these tags here, like closed candidate, those in my mind, I had convinced myself they looked like we were done with them, but I didn't actually close them. I put that tag on. So that's what little I can offer at this time.
Couple of comments. I did the same exercise, and I have a couple of comments on issue 19, which should be closed. Yes, I agree, because the presentation from Ned was there. Same as 20, because the presentation from Sam was done. And regarding 17, we have scheduled Yaron, I think in September.
I think next time is the plan, 2 weeks from now, if that's still, if he's still available.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's all we have on the agenda for this week. If we could, you want to end here, and we can get a half an hour back. Just get volunteers for the next chair.
I can throw out the Keith isn't here, but I can throw out the at least from my perspective, what was the one of the energetically discussed topics last time, which was he threw out 3 bullet items of what he kind of saw the primary purposes for a verification service, as I recall. And one of them was a feature that, folks looked for to delegate trust to this verification service. And I kind of had a slightly emotional, panicked, all sorts of emotions kind of reaction to that. And I think last time, as I recall, that Keith suggested a bit of follow-up conversation there. I don't know if folks want to do that or not.
Yeah, Mike captured that in his document, so I'm kind of highlighting it here. This is the 3 points that you're referring to.
Yeah, the first one was the one I recall, the energetic discussion. There's some points there, at least on my side. I was trying to process that on the fly, and
What you're concerned about that one, that was more in terms of who is in the TCB?
well, Keith states, I view that attestation verified service serving 3 purposes. So one is delegation of trust. And I think that being able to reassign the evaluation attestation is attractive in certain cases. And in cases where it's not, then what does what does an attestation verifier service do? Does it not exist because it's not trusted? Or does it essentially become something that is so transparent that it doesn't need to be trusted? I think that's one way of kind of thinking about it. And, working on a verification service.
There is always trust. There always trust. I don't think you can. Saying things like that worries me. That even transparency, I think you need to be deciding what is it you're trusting. You're not trusting the operating, but you're trusting the code. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff about how you do that trust.
Well, and that's like running a verification service. I know that we have requests to basically see our source code, requests for it to be open source, requests for reproducible builds. Essentially, what it turns out, from my perspective, what it boils down to is there's a certain subset of verification service customers who ideally want, the verifications, that they want to apply confidential compute, measurable confidential compute, or just measurable confidential compute mechanisms to basically not have to trust the verification service because I call it transparent, right? They can understand and assess and form trust of the measured, code that's running there. And so,
well, there's I think MAA and the ITA both have the ability to generate their own evidence to show that their verifier code is running in a TEE.
Yes, but connecting and I'm sorry, go on.
Okay.
And that's once that's taken to completion, the trust circles back to the relying party, right? They basically say, I don't trust you. Give me your evidence, and now I'm going to scrutinize your evidence. So I'm going to get the hash of your source code. I'm going to get all the source code. I'm going to reproduce the build and ensure that I understand what's there. Then I'm going to scrutinize the source code and determine whether I trust it. So ultimately, they're not trusting you. They're not trusting the verifier. They're trusting they're trusting somebody to validate that they trust the source code, right? So they're trusting themselves. There is no, here's something signed by, Intel or Microsoft or AMD or whatever. It's they don't trust, they have to analyze and form trust. They trust themselves, right? So, and they themselves have to analyze the evidence to say, do I trust this thing that's out there? And so once you bring in,
Sorry, one question I have around that is what percentage of customers are truly able or willing to do that? There will always be a few, but it's going to become vanishingly small if we can make this stuff ubiquitous, right?
I agree that that the percentage and numbers will change over time. Yeah. I don't have enough. I think folks would like to live in a world. I suspect it's not scalable for everybody to do this in-depth analysis. That's clear. it's just from a time perspective and from an expertise and skills perspective. I guess from what I can see is I just see customers wrestling with it. I can't tell you what percentage. You know.
And I think this comes down to one of the possible business models or sets of business models. So I'm going to just put this in here. If you want to not trust the party, then you have the option of doing a thorough check yourself. B, having a third trusted fourth party do it, or having it based in the community, which is kind of interesting. If you're doing this one,
I was gonna say, I think there seems to be some momentum, and it also seems scalable by making everything transparent, open source, however you want to think of it, and have things like reproducible builds, so you're 100% confident what's running. Then as long as it's out there in the open and parties, folks like Osama and crew are scrutinizing what's out there, folks will have some confidence that it's doing what is expected, what is advertised to be doing.
I think that's I worry about that for operational. I think that can be the case for the base code, but making the link to the operational is difficult. And I'd like to just raise an interesting thing here, because I've been in contact with some folks from Gematic, who some of you may know if you have a knowledge of Germany. They are the healthcare regulator for Germany, and they are looking at an attestation model where they basically are the checking that fourth party for attestation services, and they provide. So it's basically regulator rubber stamping of attestation services, as I understand it. We've encouraged them. Andreas, you're here. Perfect. Please talk about this now. I hadn't realized you were here. Please, 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 please. This is excellent.
Hello. Just a second.
Andreas, yes.
Hello. That's basically why I said hello at the beginning. So just to introduce myself, I'm an IT architect working at Gematic. We are sort of an appendix of the German Ministry of Health, and we try to further the cause of digital healthcare, or digital service for healthcare. And we've been working with confidential computing technologies, specifically Intel SGX, for a number of years in a number of projects, one of them being a personal medical record service, and another one being the e-prescription service that has been launched, I guess, 2 years ago. So I'm always thinking about the function of confidential computing in 3 different branches. One is obviously the topic of this special interest group, which is the attestation. And the other ones are memory encryption and isolation. Isolation, I'm not so convinced that it already does it. But attestation is basically a way for us to be able to delegate operational duties, mainly the service levels for availability of services to industrial partners, to market participants, and still claim a position as the guarantor of security. And specifically, our users are everyday people, all of Germany, basically all German citizens, because we have a mandate for health insurance. And so they cannot evaluate evidence, for instance. They need a regular TLS certificate, but this needs to be backed by evidence that is independently verified, so that we can maintain basically a knowledge base or a configuration database of valid items to be run. And then we issue server identities, server certificates, or access to the keys, let's say, after a successful attestation through our own service. But this own service is not necessarily operated in-house at Gematik or whatnot. It's part of the infrastructure, but itself a confidential service. So we bootstrap this down to an HSM where we have the root key, and then we pair it with the attestation service, and this attestation service then attests to all these other services, and then issues the certificates as well. So that's the model. And I think regarding the question that was discussed just now, obviously, it's not always possible to get everything open source and so on. But the general idea is still to be very transparent, because we don't want to basically provide users with services that we force upon them in our regulatory function, and then subject them to any special interests, really, that would be associated with intransparent operations or other business models. So this is our story. And I think that I'm currently drafting on a specification for what we call healthcare confidential computing, which is a cloud variant of confidential computing that we want to make available for the service providers mainly. And we want to be able to sort of serve this role of the independent attestation verification service owner. We won't do it ourselves, not alone. It's all coming down to multi-party agreement, which starts at the HSM ceremony, where there's also multiple stakeholders, usually at least us and the operator. So nobody can do anything independent of or untraced, basically.
So thank you, Andreas. I mean, I for one would love to, if you have any, so if you have a diagram of what things look like and how you manage that, and the interdependencies and things, presenting this, send that to this meeting or the TAC would, I'm sure, be very, very popular and very get a lot of interest if you're able to do that. So I think this is a perfect example of a type of business model that I hadn't thought of, in the initial thinking. So I thought about regulators, but not about this way of doing it. So it proves to me that there's still a lot of work to be done on this, in this document, in this area. So thank you so much for explaining that, Andreas. That was really helpful.
Yeah, no problem. I can do that at some point. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Hey,
and I
Andreas. Michael, and I'll let you finish, and I'll get my question.
No, I was just going to say I was pleased that he was there, because he was able to say things that I wasn't able to. So that's great. Thank you.
So if I could ask you one question, Andreas, in your world, in your scenario, as all these, as you speak about all these multi-party pieces are being stitched together, somewhere there's some code. I assume there's some code. There's some code and there's some policy that's basically making a trust decision about attestation evidence. right? So that's the whole point of the verifier is to essentially is to analyze this attestation evidence and then give basically allow some relying party to conclude thumbs up or thumbs down. I am, you know, this attestation evidence reflects an entity that I'm going to trust and work with and do whatever I do, share keys, share health records, what have you, or not. So in your world, that code or policy, what entity, which of the multi-party components actually creates and masters that code and has the ability, that code or policy config? Who masters it and who has the ability to change it? Is that, you know, your team, or is that your cloud service hosting provider? Or is that, you know, where is that? And what's the processes around ensuring that that is that done in a transparent fashion so that it's open and anybody can audit it essentially and you know, at any point in time establish that they trust it? Or is that closed and you just have to trust that that party that you know is managing it, you just trust them?
So what I was talking about is basically the future, of course. What we've done so far is we always mandate independent code reviews, even source reviews, not necessarily, let's say, Intel firmware, of course, but mainly the stack that's used to run the application, including the application itself, by an accredited body, you know, like a review. Well, I don't know the English term for it right now. So this is not a public, transparent process. And also, we've also have some experience with common criteria certification, not for the data center stuff, but for decentral components that we used to promote and no longer do, more or less. So I think it's the way ahead is really towards more transparency, towards more formalization, which makes for a different kind of transparency, really, because you have some proof artifacts that you can work with. And then, of course, there is a process of admission, which is based on this type of evidence, you know, an independent review document that is presented to us, and we say, okay, this satisfies our security concerns, and we have a rather big security department who reviews stuff. And so what I think the main value of this scheme, this attestation scheme, is that it takes the operational environment out of the loop. It doesn't do much for the fine-grained review of all the artifacts that are measured. So this is obviously an explosion of complexity to check all this on, and it's even very hard to determine what is the right level of checking. And I'm a big fan of formal, so I think that's the ultimate goal. So, yeah, does that answer your question?
Somewhat. So that's helpful. Thank you.
I think, you know, one of the words that we've used quite a few times today, and Andreas used it, is that word transparency. And I actually wrote a little LinkedIn thing about it the other day, because I think that we're moving more towards transparency being, you know, one of the almost required primitives. But what that means is not well defined yet. And I think there's some work to be done on what transparency looks like, not just in CC. Hey, this is a broader question about security and open source, because, you know, we've always said that you need transparency in open source, but there's other things as well, process transparency, organizational transparency. And I think bringing those together as sort of underpinnings is interesting. Let me see if I can just find the thing. I wrote a very brief piece on LinkedIn a few days ago, which might be interesting for people to look at. I don't know.
Let me just briefly answer Usama's question. from my perspective, there is no difference between attestation verification service and the verifier or remote attestation service. It's more, yeah.
No, it's sorry, I had a hand raised for a while, so I think it's not being monitored anyway. So my question was the RATS architecture and not the other thing. So the RATS architecture is defining the verifier role, and I am not sure if in this specific document Mike is using it in the sense of the verifier, or is it something different? So my question was kind of related to that, because I was struggling to find why we are defining it as a different term if that's exactly the same as verifier. And if it's not, then what exactly is different from a verifier role of RATS?
So what were the two things? Verify and what?
Verifier and the attestation verification service.
AVS.
So verifier,
you have.
the verifier in the sense of RATS.
I think that the AVS is, among other things, the verifier, probably. But I think it may be doing more than just a pure verification. And that's part of what I want to get to here as well. And when you start talking about a service, you're talking about a business thing, right? This is something that needs to be deployed, and it needs to be run and backed up and upgraded and have resilience and patched and all those sorts of things. So I want to be thinking beyond just the definition of a party to an entity that's doing things. And that's kind of where I'm going, and I need to make that clearer.
Right. So that was the first thought that came to me while reading this, because I was not sure about this difference anyway. So then the next question is to Andreas. So if I assume that, as I understood, that the attestation verification service is a bigger role than verifier, so it has the verifier embedded within and some extra things. So my question to Andreas would be, how are you in Gematik thinking about the verification service that you are designing? Would that be so is it the three schemes that I showed, like the pre, intra, and post? So which of the three schemes would you be following?
Well,
Or are you already following something?
we have no. Well, what we are doing is we have an attestation service, and it's also a sub certificate authority to our PKI infrastructure, so it can issue server certificates or just manipulate access control on an HSM for access to the private key for signing operations. So there is no deep integration. It's basically the service checks the attestation report against its predetermined reference values, and then triggers the issuance of the certificate. There is no protocol level integration. It all happens pre any type of TLS session with clients, but it's a part. There is a TLS session between the attestation service, which has an identity that can be recognized by the attested service, and sort of an authentication for the attested service based on the attestation report. Does that make sense?
Okay, so what I kind of gather is that it is a kind of a pre-handshake attestation. So it's all happening before the TLS starts. But among the two categories that I'm sure that I showed, I am still thinking about whether it's attested CSR or whether it's the Intel's kind of RATLS. Do you already know whether you are using the Intel's RATLS protocol?
I think neither really, because it's sort of we've built the first version of this, I don't know, 6 years ago or so, 7.
Mhm.
And there were no standards that we were aware of. So we just designed something that would condition the service identity, the attested service identity upon attestation, prior attestation with an entity, with an attestation verification service or an attester. So that's basically all. There's no, the client in TLS may have to authenticate as part of the TLS handshake or not. We use the pattern where the client does not authenticate, and the client now being the attested service does not authenticate with the attestation service, but instead delivers the attestation report, and this is interpreted as identity. And then based on that, access to a TLS certificate is granted, or the key, and then the service, the attested service can service clients, which will contact using regular TLS. So I don't think that it's on your slide, to be honest.
Okay.
And
But
it's
that would be very interesting, because all the solutions that as I presented and just shown on, I'm showing up the slide again. So I would be very interested if this is a kind of a separate solution, because to my knowledge, every solution had either a self-signed certificate or a trust authority or a certificate authority signed. So if I understood you correctly, you are saying it's a kind of a third branch where you have something else, nothing. So the certificate.
Oh, no, when I look at it again, it's probably the pre-handshake attestation on the right side. So we have, but we match
Pre or post?
pre.
Yeah, on the left. Okay, right.
And
So
then
so
the right
yeah.
part.
This I believe, yes, you have this, because you are saying that it's before the TLS. But I'm struggling to see whether it's self-signed or whether it's, so the certificate that is issued, it's not self-signed, right? So it's
No,
signed by
it's
the
exactly, the attestation service acts as a CA, basically, or
attestation service. Assuming this attestation service is the verifier role, this would mean that basically you are having the verifier is issuing the certificate.
or just making it available, because the certificate itself is issued independently and then introduced into this hardware security module. And then access control over this specific key is managed by the attestation service. That's really what we do, I think.
Okay, I would be very interested in discussing the details either offline.
Yeah, again, I
it
think
would be
this is
very nice to
exactly the thing. It would be good to see diagrams
in one
of.
of the
Sorry,
SIG meetings. Yeah. I was just saying the same, that either offline, or it would be, I think, very interesting for the SIG also, because we have been doing the formal verification work, and it would be very nice to account your solution also into the picture. Thanks, Andreas.
Yeah, thank you. I will be in Vienna too, so we can maybe discuss it there as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I would love to talk about it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Good discussion. All right, we're at the top of the hour, so the clerical thing now is to get a chair for the next meeting. I think who's here? It's chairs. It's Thomas.
It's my turn, so you can put me down. And I see Yaron is scheduled for 2 weeks out. Does somebody have contact information for Yaron so I can confirm?
Yes, I can see you.
Okay, great. It sounds like Mike, if you're here in a couple of weeks, I suspect that if Yaron isn't around or his presentation short, I suspect you probably have more about business cases for attestation to potentially discuss.
I'm at a conference, so I may not be available. But if I can make it, even though I'm at a conference, I will try, because we should definitely try and get this done.
Okay, sounds very good.
Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you
folks.
all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.